top 5 muscles for the female gaze. These are going to be the top 5 muscles that women specifically, not men, so women actually find attractive. Okay, what muscles to train to actually stimulate arousal and attraction induced by your physique to women. What am I basing this off of? This is going to be a combination of my own experience with women, talking to women. I'm a personal trainer. I've trained many female clients in the gym where I would say we're talking about gym and muscles and physiques, etc. So I have a lot of personal experience with what women say in this, in addition to one of the best ways we can figure out what women actually like, which is going to be social media, what they say on social media, what they like on social media. So mostly shorts, TikToks, Reddit, stuff like that. And lastly, there's also been official studies where women actually rank which muscles they find most attractive. So all of this criteria is going to go into this list. It's not really going to be in any particular order. I'm going to put it in the order that I think matters most, but every woman's different, guys. That's the thing. Every woman's different. Every single muscle on the body is going to have at least a small percentage of women that are really, really drawn to it. But this list is going to be in general for the majority overall mass appeal. What muscles are going to be the most attractive to women? Number 1 is going to be abs. By far, I would say abs is the most attractive to women out of any muscle in the body. It's just the way it is. It's much better to have less muscle and be lean with a six-pack than have a bunch of muscle and be a big bloat lord with no visible six-pack. I notice in my own relationship when I go from 13, 14% body fat to down to 12, 11, 10%, a little bit of a difference, noticeable difference in the way my woman's attracted to my physique, specifically my midsection, and many other guys notice the same thing. Now, you don't have to be extreme hyper lean like bodybuilders. I think 10% body fat is probably ideal, 10 to 12 in that range. In fact, women actually prefer that over you being leaner, similar to how as men, we don't think it's that attractive when women are extremely hyper lean. It looks kind of sickly. It doesn't look healthy. A little bit of fat looks healthy. And really, that's what attraction is. It's a sign of health, right? We look for healthy genetic signals in mates, and having too much fat and having too little fat is both going to be unhealthy. So 10 to 12% is probably going to be ideal for abs. Now, the thing is, you can't just be 10 to 12% body fat. You have to actually train abs directly with progressive overload, with weighted exercise over time to actually build the mass of the abs. There's plenty of people who are super lean, but their abs don't look that good. They're just kind of flat. They have no definition and shape to them. This is because they don't actually train abs for hypertrophy. Look at people like long distance runners who have very low body fat percentage. Their midsections do not look aesthetic or really that attractive whatsoever. Whereas for people who train abs, they can actually be a much, much higher body fat percentage. You have to actually train your abs for hypertrophy growth to maximize the attractiveness of your abs in this area. Just getting lean is not enough. You need to train your abs. The number 2 muscle for the female gaze is going to be arms, but specifically 2 parts of the arm, the biceps and the forearms. I would say these are by far, besides the abs, the number 1 most arousal inducing muscle to women. If you go on any type of reels or TikTok or shorts and you look up biceps or forearms, you're going to see many posts of women obsessing and lusting over guys' biceps and forearms. I've seen videos of dudes just like doing work with their forearms in the camera, and women are like drooling all over it in the comments because his forearms are very developed. Same thing with biceps. If you ever see videos of women listing out their criteria in a guy, pretty much the only muscle they'll ever put is biceps. I want him to be this tall, I want him to act like this, treat me like this, and have biceps. This is what I've seen universally across social media. In addition to my experience with women, my girl, her favorite muscle by far is biceps, and this is just going to be very universal. Now, your upper forearm, brachialis, and bicep are all kind of connected into forming that shape of that front of your arm with your bicep and your forearm. What you really want to avoid, which is what a lot of guys tend to do because a lot of guys are obsessed with triceps and they love training triceps, is that you get a tricep dominant arm. And this is not going to be aesthetic. Tricep dominant arms, if you are not super lean, they make your arm look fat because it holds a lot of weight back there, just the same way that fat would accumulate in the back of the arm. It just does not look nearly as aesthetic as having bicep dominated arms with big forearms. You still want your triceps to look good. You want them to look defined. You don't want them to look skinny, but do not have a tricep dominated arm. You want to lean more towards bicep if your goal is the female gaze. You look up bicep on TikTok, you'll see tons of posts of women fantasizing and lusting over biceps. You look up triceps, you'll see a bunch of gym bros showing you the most optimal way to hit all three heads of the tricep. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory in and of itself. Biceps are going to be greater than triceps for female gaze. Number 3 muscle for female gaze is going to be shoulders. Now, this is going to be specifically because working your delts, especially the lateral delt, your side delt, is going to give you the illusion of having a wider frame. It's going to make you look like you have wider bone structure, and really a lot of attraction comes down to bone structure, and we use gym to increase the visual kind of illusion of having that bone structure. The reason women train their glutes and their hips and their quads and hamstrings is because having a bigger lower body down there in proportion to their upper body gives the illusion of that hourglass figure where they have wide hip bones, which is what's really going to be attractive to men and women. And same thing vice versa. When men work their upper body, specifically the shoulders, it's going to give the illusion that they have more of that V-taper physique that goes from their shoulders taper down to the smaller waist, which is what is going to be naturally attractive to women. If anything, the shape is even a little bit more important than the size. Now, you can't look skinny, but having bigger size and worse shape, I would say, is not as ideal as having a little bit less size. Still good size, but having the ideal shape. So shoulders are what you're going to need to give you that better illusion of having those wider clavicles, specifically lateral delts, but you don't want to skip front delts or rear delts. Do not fall for the myth that you don't need to train front delts. If you do chest pressing, the front of your delt will look flat. It won't look capped, rounded, and 3D. So train your front delts as well, but lateral delt is what you're going to need for that width. The number 4 muscle for female attraction goes along similarly with the third one, and that is going to be lower lats. Why lower lats? Because training your lower lats is going to give you more of that V-shaped look that women find extremely attractive. Studies have shown that shoulder to waist ratio is one of the most attractive things in men that we can possibly have in the eyes of women when it comes to your physique. Shoulders and lower lats are going to be the most important muscles to develop to create this V shape, along with being lean, obviously, so you have a small waist. So training your lower lats are going to be very important. Number 5 muscle, which may surprise some of you guys, is going to be glutes. Overall, I'd say by far, in terms of the lower body, glutes are going to be the most attractive muscle to women overall. I don't think most women care that much about quads. In fact, having too big of quads can make you look kind of unaesthetic, kind of slow, not athletic. Your posterior chain is going to be much better to focus on if you want to appeal to the female gaze. Why is that? It's because the posterior chain is really what is going to be used for athleticism. Sprinting, running, jumping while running, etc. is going to be mainly posterior chain focused, not quad focused. And think about it. In terms of evolution and biology, women are going to be attracted to guys who can actually hunt and fight and things like that. And you need to look like you are strong, but also capable, agile, fast, etc. But when you have massive quads, you look like you are slow. So I would say in the lower body, quads are actually the least attractive muscle for female attraction. Overall, women, time and time again, they notice men's glutes. I've always been like, why do women notice men's glutes? But I kind of realize it now. Women are drawn to guys who have nice glutes. They notice it much more than your quads. Obviously, the hamstrings are kind of tied to the glutes because it is the posterior chain. So growing your hamstrings also gives you that nice athletic look as well. As men, we tend to care a little bit more about our quads and things like our chest. Probably those are some of the two most trained muscles, squat, especially because it's the base lift, squat, bench press, etc. And so that's also what we see from the front when we look at ourselves. It makes us look big. But looking big is not always the most important. That's why women aren't really attracted in general to professional bodybuilders, because they just look too big. They look like they're almost disabled. They can't run. They can't hunt like a man who is in a sport, more like a strong MMA fighter physique or something like that. That looks much more capable, agile. It's going to be a lot more attractive to women. Now, if you are an average guy who doesn't really have any standout traits, becoming bodybuilder level jacked could actually help you, because there are women, even though it's not for the majority appeal. There are women who find that niche extremely attractive. I've seen guys who are like even below average height. I was training at a gym. I saw a guy who was like 5'5", bald dude who had a girl who looked pretty good, and she was taller than him, following him around the gym everywhere. Getting bodybuilder level jacked is a niche, but for overall mass appeal, these 5 muscles I laid out to you are what I believe to be the most important for female gaze. I'm going to give a bonus muscle as well, and that's going to be chest. Women definitely are attracted to chest. However, I think us men, the aesthetic that we like, which is just a huge, massive chest, is not as effective at getting the female gaze as having just a nice developed chest with especially an upper developed chest. So more like a flatter, but like square upper chest poking out, little physique. I know women really do not like that droopy lower chest where you grow your lower chest so much to the point where it kind of looks like it's drooping. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of has that look. Obviously, to us guys, Arnold is the GOAT of chest genetics for bodybuilding standards. But for female gaze, I was watching the other day a documentary with my sister and my wife. We saw a trailer for Arnold documentary, and I was asking about his physique. They said he looks a lot better than modern bodybuilders today. You know why? His legs weren't as massive. They were still really strong, but his quads weren't as huge as the bodybuilders nowadays. And overall, he wasn't as lean. He was still lean, not as lean. But the one thing they didn't like was his massive droopy chest, which to me, I was like, oh, his chest is so huge. It's awesome. They didn't like that much. So that's why I'm putting chest as the bonus. A lot of women, they do love chest. You have to develop your chest. It also makes you from the front look like you have more of that V taper because it gives you more mass up top. But I would put it overall behind the other ones. I think the other ones could be developed more, especially if you're natural. There's pretty much no limit, I don't think, to the point of which you could develop those and to where it'd be like too much for women. You know, more V taper, bigger shoulders. That's better. Biceps and forearms, I think those can get as big as you can. Abs as shredded and defined as possible. And glutes, women love strong glutes. Maybe that was number 5. So maybe not, there is a limit to that one. In addition to chest, I've seen some naturals have like too big lower chest compared to the upper chest. It does not look aesthetic. So for chest, you got to train it in the right way. Still want nice lower chest. Don't want it to be flat, but got to train more of that upper chest to create that nice upper level mass instead of a droopy lower mass. So that is going to be top 5 muscles plus bonus that women find attractive. Train those muscles, guys. A little bit of exercise for each one. I would say abs, train decline weighted sit-ups. You can progressively overload. Biceps, you can go preacher curls. Forearms, reverse barbell curls, and wrist curls. Lateral raises for the shoulders. Make sure you hit your front delts and rear delts too. Presses, rear delt flies. Lower lats, you're going to want your low rows with your elbow in line with your body and your pull downs. Glutes, for me, glutes primarily grew through hip thrusts. My glutes were not developed really until I hit hip thrusts. I was hitting, squats, leg press all the time, really just growing my quads. My glutes are one of my worst muscles. Started hitting hip thrusts. RDLs will hit them too if you try to squeeze your glutes and make it glute dominant with your form. And then chest, you want to make sure you're hitting upper chest. I would hit upper chest first when you're freshest in your workout. Some incline bench, incline flies, etc. are going to be good for that one. Thank you guys for watching. Please like the video if you made it this far. Let me know if you agree with the list, disagree, etc. in the comments. As always, subscribe for truth. Peace.